Okay, welcome back, everyone. We have begun recording again. So the second question here is, how can we update the tier system? Again, it's not intended to be a debate about should we have a tier system or not. It's how can we update it? So assuming we keep a tier system, what should this look like? So we'll open it up.
Justin, the premise is we're keeping a tier system. Is that what you?
Yeah. Yeah, so we're not trying to debate whether or not we should have a tier system or not. Just how could we update the tier system if it needs updating?
If we're going to have one, I would say you need to increase the canopy sizes. I don't think you need more tiers, but I think you need more breadth within tiers and allow people to do what they want to do within that tier.
So could you clarify so you're saying increasing the canopy sizes, but you're not talking about the maximums, you're talking about within the areas that we have right now.
No. I'm so sorry. Let me. So first off, I would say get rid of the tier system. But if we have to have it, something to the effect, and I'm just throwing numbers out. You could say a tier 1 can go up to 30,000 square feet. The tier 2 could go up to 60,000 square feet. The tier 3 could go up to 90,000 square feet. What I'm saying is expand the footprint for potential grow within a tier. If someone wants to stay at 1,000 as a tier 1 or a tier 3 for that matter, then God bless them. But I think we need to have more flexibility and opportunity for production within a tier, and then I think it's up to the business to determine what makes the most sense for them.
Okay. Other thoughts? Tim, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, I would echo David in agreeing that I think moving in a larger direction would be a good idea. I don't have a specific size in mind, but I think that we certainly have a lot of data from the last, I guess Kathy said we're coming up on 10 years, and I'm an original applicant. I've been here the whole time, and we certainly have a lot of data. I know at the time when the tier system was created, not only did we not have cultivation data for Washington State, we were the first in the world, along with Colorado. And so really this tier system that we came up with, it's done remarkably well, I think, for just sort of a first guess or a rough draft. But I would think that it's sort of obvious maybe that the first guess probably isn't going to be the best answer. And one of the strengths of our system is the amount of data collection that the state has done, or the amount of data collection that licensees have done on behalf of the state. So we have a tremendous amount of data about how much cannabis can be produced in a given area. We also have a lot of sales data about how much cannabis is getting consumed, sold at retail. And so I think a really good move would be to look at that data and make sure that the tier system provides enough production to support a healthy market. Now, sort of anecdotally, I think people would say, well, hey, aren't we in a state of drastic overproduction? And I would say it's not that simple. There's a lot of factors that have nothing to do with the in-state production that have affected prices, including the cannabinoids coming in via hemp and the conversion of CBD distillate into THC distillate, which of course has been now banned. However, we know that it was not banned, and we all got the emails about the unicorn case this week, so I guess it's okay to talk about it. Got an email from David Postman to all of us. So we know that a tremendous amount of hemp biomass was used to support the state system for at least a year, and that likely had a dramatic impact. And in fact, that data is available too. We can look at it exactly how much distillate Unicorn Brands sold and sort of work backwards to see how much biomass didn't get consumed out of the tier system because of that. Well, there's also a lot of speculation that there's product coming in from Oregon and California, particularly cannabinoids distillate.
So how are you correlating that to the tier system? So, when we're talking about how do we update the tier system, I mean, it sounds like, yes, there's a number of different external factors that can come into play on production and those types of things. But if we're looking at the tier system itself, how does that correlate with that?
Well, I guess I'm just agreeing with David that I think we need larger grows and more production. And I'm just sort of anticipating the idea that, hey, some people are going to say, look, there's already too much production. Why would we expand the tiers? That's crazy. Everybody knows prices are collapsing. And what I'm saying is, well, maybe the reason prices are going down isn't because of the production within our tier system, but it has to do with all the hemp-derived cannabinoids that entered the system back in 2020 when it was legal, and the cannabinoids that are coming in from out of state. And so to say, hey guys, we can't go bigger because already there's overproduction, I would say I'm not convinced that's true. Let's look at the data. Let's look at the impact of hemp-derived cannabinoids. And I think what we would find is historically there's really not been enough production. We know in 2019 and 2020 there were shortages. And it seemed like the LCB was responding by allowing a lot of growers to expand and get bigger and maybe grow outside of the canopy. It certainly wasn't a public policy, but it seemed to be sort of the boots on the ground. The enforcement was allowing a lot of leeway with large grows back when there were shortages. Then when the price collapsed this spring, there was a lot of enforcement of canopy to try to rein in production. But my point is, there's other forces bringing cannabinoids into the system. And so to say that it's all the overproduction as a result of the growing that's going on in these little tier 1s and 2s and 3s, I would say is not accurate. And I also worry that being confined to such small spaces when prices are low, we won't be able to survive. We're sort of set up for failure. If the price is going to stay permanently lower, but we're forced to stay growing small, we're really going to get squeezed and the market is going to go to hemp.
Other thoughts?
I agree with Tim on pretty much every single point that he's made today. I also want to point out that maybe the tiered system should be geared a little bit differently. Like, we have a lot of craft growers within our industry and they're really small. So maybe we should define it in a different way. For example, I know that Tim grows a lot of his biomass for distillation. We partner with him and use a lot of that stuff. And we've also seen that the pricing is very hard to compete with. What we've gathered can definitely be cannabinoids that are coming from out of the Washington market. That's what we've gathered. So I also think we might need to relook at our traceability system. When we transferred over to the CCRS system, I don't think that was the best way to enforce being able to, follow what's going on with the cannabinoids and the biomass and where it's going. I think it's a lot easier to create false entries in the system than it used to be. So I don't know, there's just a lot of things going on here that I think need to be looked at a little bit deeper.
Okay. Other thoughts from folks? We have, looks like about 5 minutes.
Yeah, Justin, if there's nobody else, I'll the point that Tim makes relative to setting ourselves up for failure is a real issue, particularly if we're not able to scale, and that has everything to do with ultimately marijuana coming off a Schedule I narcotic. And when that does, the doors are going to be wide open. And with lack of ability to scale or a sudden impulse to, oh, well, now that this product can cross borders, we're going to allow you growers to increase your scale. It's going to be too late. So again, I think the ability to scale, at least having the opportunity within a regulatory construct that leaves it up to the individual operator is an imperative. It's an imperative in order for this industry to survive longer term.
Okay. So let me ask, let me kind of couch it this way. So when we're looking at the tier system, when you're talking about that scalability, what would there be any ideas on what part of the tier system would be good to look at as far as evaluation? We've heard the mention of allowing larger grows, so like the tier ones up to 30,000, then to 60, 90, and kind of correlating with the previous conversation, we've also heard opportunities for flexibility. Obviously, scaling is an issue. Any other thoughts before I ask a more pointed question on what you would want to see in a tier, or what we could do to update the tier system as it stands? So South Slope, go ahead.
Well, I mean, the original justification for the tier system was to cap state production, and everybody always acknowledged it was a messy way to do that. And I agree with the person earlier who said now we have a whole cache of data in terms of you want to look at, exactly what consumption in the state is. So if you're going to apply the tier system in the way that I think it was envisioned in terms of a supply and demand scenario within the state, and I caveat this with any form of interstate commerce makes this moot. But if you're trying to balance supply and demand in state, a tier system would be reflected on terms of how much weight you can produce and not how much area you can farm. And I know that's a kind of a radical concept, but I think that's what the system was designed for. Looking at how that affects people's businesses in the event of interstate commerce is another thing. And I think the state, if they ever implemented rules that capped production on weight, would have to have some type of trigger law in the event of interstate commerce that allowed folks to scale up so that they could stay competitive.
So if we were looking at an update to the tier system independently from the other questions, you're suggesting that we look at an alternative based on weight of production. Is that what I heard?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I just want to make sure I captured that right. Other thoughts? All right. So
I agree with that.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, basically everything else that we measure in our inventory and everything is based on weight. So it definitely makes sense to update the tier system to reflect that as well.
All right, so we have like 2 minutes. I don't know if I'll be able to get enough in here, but does anybody have any thoughts on we have the provision right now, you can have 3 licenses in each tier, and we talked about the 30, 60, 90. Any thoughts about the number of licenses to consolidate tiers or to consolidate the current grow amounts?
Is a question of how many licenses you could own? And
well, yeah, so right now we have, you can be a tier 3 up to 30,000 square feet 3 times over. We had somebody mention, let tier 3s grow up to 90,000. So is the concept there to grow 90,000 per licensed area, or just being able to consolidate all 30,000 of each of their spaces so that they can have a greater economy of scale?
90,000 per licensed area.
Okay.
Or 90,000 as a minimum. I mean, ultimately, I think it should be unlimited.
And Gregory, I thought I saw your hand up. We may get cut off here, but if you wanted to jump in.
Sure. Just a couple of comments. Really appreciate all the comments that folks have been sharing. It's really thoughtful commentary, especially about interstate. Measuring on weight becomes a little complicated in terms of kind of when you measure that, how wet the product is, that sort of thing. So, and also enforcement around that may be a little bit challenging. I do like the idea of growing number of plants. I think that maybe a different approach, although there is also high variability in terms of the output of particular plants, is my understanding. And so one thing I think that hasn't been suggested or looked at is whether the tiering system needs to consider differences between growing techniques. So indoor, outdoor, greenhouse, hoop house, and any combination thereof, and the kind of output that you can get from those facilities based on the square footage and size, that sort of thing. So there's a lot of things to consider, but you're doing a good job taking all the notes. Thanks, Justin.
Yeah, no problem. Looks like we're going to get bumped out of here. Yep.